I'm going to read a story out of the book Return of the Divine Sophia, Healing the Earth Through Lost Wisdom Teachings of Jesus, Isis, and Mary Magdalene by Tricia McCannon. And in the book, there's a story being told by someone named Shasta about Ishtar and Tammuz. And she's telling the story to a group of women. And it goes like this. Shasta began, Ishtar was one of the great queens of heaven, the granddaughter of Enlil, king of the gods. Tammuz was a noble shepherd king who had first brought the teachings of animal husbandry to humankind. Both of them were royalty from the long-lived race of Anunnaki gods, who seeded this planet thousands of years ago. The Anunnaki, or Anakim, as they were known in the Bible, were also called the Shining Ones. Because of their light skin and hair, their skin actually glows from the light within. While some of the gods were more selfish or egocentrically oriented, Tammuz was not. He was a kindly minstrel, a poet, a shepherd, and a noble king who was associated with the Tree of Life. He was also known as Dumuzi, and it is said that he ruled Mesopotamia for some 40,000 years. Tammuz taught the art of animal husbandry to humankind and was deeply loved by all who knew him. Because Ishtar and Tammuz were from different sides of feuding factions within the ranks of gods, their love was not only unexpected but forbidden. But after a long period of courting, they gained permission from their rival families to marry. I could see that Shasta was now warming to this legend. Shasta went on, but one day, while hunting, Tammuz was gored by a wild boar and died. This meant that Tammuz was forced to descend into the underworld. Overcome by grief, Ishtar decided to follow Tammuz into Hades, knowing that such a journey might cost her her life. Telling only her sister where she was going, Ishtar began her perilous descent, but to reach Hades, she had to pass through 7 gates of hell, and at each gate she was forced to give away part of her divine power. When she arrived at the first gate, the guardian recognized her immediately and greeted her, saying, "Hail Ishtar, Queen of Heaven! What are you doing here? You are not dead. You have not died. You have no need to go to the underworld." But Ishtar bowed and addressed the guardian with respect. "Brave gatekeeper, I come to find my beloved Tammuz. He has died and left the cities of heaven. Have you seen him? Has he passed this way?" The gatekeeper nodded. "Yes, but I cannot permit you to pass while you still wear your datum of sacred illumination." He was talking about her crown, the crown that let her see into the other worlds. Slowly Ishtar reached up and took off her datum. "Gladly I will give up the crown of heaven for the sake of love," she murmured. "Then you may pass," the gatekeeper said, bowing as he let her by. At the second gate, Ishtar was greeted by the next guardian, and this time the gatekeeper ordered her to give up her necklace of speech. This is not the power to speak as mortals do, but the power to command creation with a word. Once again, Ishtar yielded up her powers for the sake of love. At the third gate, Ishtar was asked to surrender her bracelets of manifestation, the golden wristbands that allowed her to manifest her heart's desires. Inclining her head in submission, she took off her golden bands and passed through. Then, at the fourth gate, Ishtar was asked to surrender her bejeweled girdle, which amplified the powers of her third chakra. It was probably a belt like Wonder Woman's, giggled Claudia, and we all laughed, totally caught up in the story. Maybe this was where Wonder Woman's magic belt had come from, I reflected. Maybe our comic book heroes had attributes that were taken from these early myths. At the fifth gate, Ishtar was made to yield her royal scepter, the means through which she could command the elements. At the sixth gate, she relinquished her sandals, the golden shoes that gave her the power to fly. And finally, at the seventh gate, Ishtar was asked to surrender her golden tunic that made her impervious to death. Thus, naked and alone, Ishtar arrived in the underworld, naked, mortal, and completely vulnerable. Uh-oh, we all took a deep breath. This was a story about us. Or was this a story about us? about immortal souls who arrive on earth without any protection or powers, feeling completely naked and alone. Shasta went on now. Now, one of the things that happen when people come into the underworld is that they begin to lose their memories, just as souls do when we're born on earth. So Ishtar knew that she had little time to locate Tammuz, or she would forget her purpose. At last, she found that he was being held prisoner by Erishkigal, the queen of the underworld. This was Ishtar's jealous half-sister, and there had long been rivalry between these two queens because one ruled the realm of light, while the other ruled the kingdom of shadows. When Ishtar found Tammuz's prison, she implored the guard to release him, but the jailer refused for fear that he would be punished by Erishkigal. "Then please let me see him," Ishtar begged. "At least you can do that." The guard agreed, letting her into the dark prison where Tammuz was locked in a lonely cell. Ishtar threw herself across the bars, crying, "Tammuz, Tammuz, I have found you." The young king stood up and came to the bars to meet this lovely lady, but he no longer recognized her. He looked at her through the prison bars and saw that she was beautiful, kind, and loving, and there was something familiar about her, but he could not remember who she was. Tammuz felt a strange longing rise in his chest, and tears came to his eyes. "Forgive me, lady," he said, placing his hands on hers through the prison bars. "I feel the stirrings of my heart, but I do not know where we have met. I know I am feeling love, but I do not know who it is I am loving." His eyes seemed to melt her heart. Was it possible that he had really forgotten who she was? She wondered. How could this happen? Ishtar remembered then that most souls lost their memories when they came to this land. "I am your wife, your sweetheart, your soulmate. Don't you remember me, my love?" The prince gazed deep into her eyes. "I am sorry, lady, I do not. Your face is one that I have seen in my dreams, but I cannot remember who you are." This was too much for Ishtar. Tears spilled down her cheeks until she could barely see. "Tammuz, you must remember. You were lost, and now you are found." The prince placed a hand upon his heart. "Lady, I know that I am lost, but I no longer remember where my home is." Ishtar wept. "Your home is in heaven, my love, and you must leave this prison now before it's too late." Tammuz looked regretful. "I have no power to leave here on my own. Only the Queen of Shadows can release me now." Ishtar could not believe her ears. Tammuz had forgotten his own divine nature and did not know he came from heaven. He was trapped in the world of amnesia and shadows. Slowly, Ishtar wiped her eyes. "Then I will do it for you," she cried. "I know who you are, and you must awaken from this dream." She laced her fingers into his and kissed his lips. For a long moment, something stirred inside him. Then it was gone. "Until I return, my love," she promised. "Do not forget me. I will return. I promise." The garden and the circle of women had become very quiet, as if every animal were listening to her story. We were all there in the underworld prison with Ishtar, and it seemed all too real to me. The love, the longing, the forgetting. I knew them all too well. I had been there in many relationships, hoping to save the man I loved from the pain of his own making. Shasta continued. So Ishtar traveled to the palace of the Queen of the Shadows, who sat upon her throne with red flames burning all around her. Couriers dressed in black glided to and fro in the great hall as Ishtar waited for an audience. At last she was summoned before Erishkigal, wearing only a robe that the stewards of court had given her to hide her nakedness. But now Ishtar had begun to lose her own memories, so all she could remember was that she was to come free her beloved soulmate Tammuz. Ishtar knelt before the Dark Queen's throne and bowed. "Your Majesty?" "Rise," Erishkigal commanded, seeing that her hated half-sister was before her for the first time in submission. "Why have you come to the underworld? Why are you here?" Ishtar raised her chin. "I have come to ask that you release Tammuz from prison, That's all I can remember. That's all I know. Ereshkigal realized that her half-sister Ishtar had succumbed to the same amnesia that grips even the immortals who enter the world of light and shadows. Ishtar was completely in her power. This was going to be delightful, to finally torture her overconfident sister. And what if I do not release him? Ereshkigal spat out. You have no power in this land. What are you going to do about it? Bravely, Ishtar lifted her chin and answered, Better to remain on earth where love is than to return to heaven where love is not. This was the last thing that Ereshkigal had expected. Was Ishtar saying that she would rather remain in the world of shadows than to reign in heaven? That Ishtar would give up her power for the sake of love? That was not the way Ereshkigal remembered her proud sister. Yes, there was love in her land, even though you had to look for it. There were birds and flowers, life and beauty, even though the immortals did not often come here. If Ishtar could see beauty in the simple creatures of the earth, then perhaps Ereshkigal had misjudged her after all. The queen rose from her chair and began to give her famous speech. Blessed are those who love my sweet earth, who love the clear running waters and the smell of fish soil, the grace of stag and the majesty of the lion. Blessed are those who can see the divine beauty in all of nature, and who know there is no separation from heaven. Ereshkigal lifted her arms and gave Ishtar back her memory. Suddenly Ishtar realized where she was and who she was kneeling before. She rose to her feet and opened her arms in welcome. Come, my sweet sister, I embrace you as myself. The two sisters came together in understanding, two aspects of the great mother who encompass all things. The light and the dark were returned to balance, and the lovers were reunited in sacred union, returning to heaven in celebration and love.